Even though the complex format is more painful to memorize in the beginning, it's way better for your result, because if you're getting 90 in fluency, but you're not passing speaking, you're getting 77, 72, this is one of the reasons why. Your format is not good enough. As you may already know, this is the speaking section. So how can you get 90 in speaking? Now, first of all, 90 is the common score in speaking section. At least all the students we have over here, most of them get 90. But there's always exceptions. There's always people that have no idea how the exam works, and they talk to the computer like I'm talking to you. And if they're talking this way on the exam, they won't be able to score full marks or get 79 plus. Now, the second group of people is people that are doing all the things that the 90 scorers are doing, but they're still not getting the score. Could be their accent, could be their pacing, could be their voice, could be their pitch. So I'm going to cover all of that in this particular video. Now, before you get started, as a quick overview, this is what it looks like. So first of all, you're going to have your read aloud. You're given some time to prepare for the question, in which time you're going to prepare, rehearse any difficult words, anything you might get stuck on. And when the time is up, you just have to read the text back to the computer. Second question you'll see is repeat sentence. You listen to the audio only one time. After the audio is finished, you have to repeat it back to the computer. The next question is going to be describe image. You got 25 seconds to prepare, and then you have to speak back to the computer within 40 seconds of what the question is about or what the image or graph is about. Next, we have retell lecture. They will be playing an audio anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. You will be taking notes the whole time, and then you have to tell the computer back what the audio is about. And the last one is your short answer questions. They ask you a question. For example, what is the first meal of the day called? And you would have to say it's breakfast, right? So this is the overview of how it works. Now let's get into the specifics. So the first question is read aloud. Read aloud is one of those questions that you guys may know. It gives you marks in speaking, but it also gives you marks in your reading section. Speaking, usually I don't worry so much about. Most of our students get 90 here. The problem is the reading section. So recently they increased the score, they increased the weight distribution in this question. And if you look at the scoring guide, they still explain it to you the same way. But somehow people have been getting lower scores. So a year ago, 2 years ago, the only way we really had to measure how well the student is performing in read aloud is by ear. But now obviously the tools improved. We have our own portal, our own mock test, where you can see over here where we're using the same software as they do in the exam to analyze the speech, to check the accuracy. So how do you get marks in read aloud? The first and most important thing in speaking is your fluency. So what is fluency? Your oral fluency, and you can see it on the score report over here. It's basically you talking continuously nonstop. Because if you have a native English speaker and I'm having a conversation with you right now, I can keep talking and talking and talking and talking without having to think, without having to pause. Now, picture somebody who's fresh off the boat. They just arrived over here and they're trying to speak English, and what happens, they after every couple words, they might have a hesitation because they're trying to translate the word in their head from their native language to English. So if somebody's English, quote unquote, is bad, they would not be as fluent. And I don't agree with this. I think that's not an accurate way to assess somebody speaking, but this is how it is in the exam. For some it's good, for some it's bad. Now for you, when you know this, this is the best thing. Your job is to keep talking non-stop, continuously, without any pauses, without any hesitations. So for read aloud, the speed is going to vary from person to person. You have to keep talking continuously non-stop, which is going to give you marks in your speaking section. For your reading section, you will get marks for accuracy for the content, how clearly you're saying the words. And you guys can see we had a video over here of how we fix some students' pronunciation. You can see the tools. So now we can actually give them those tools and they can assess it by themselves to see next and yes before you get cut off. Because in this time it's going to keep recording the audio from the people around you. So if there's 3 second silence, it would actually skip and go to the next question. Okay. And for example, here, this one is better. But you see, you tend to mess up there, to see what's the improvement. What are the words they get stuck on? What are the words they're hesitating? And the most important thing, lately I've had a lot of students from Punjab or from South India that speak Gujarati, Telugu, Tamil. Another one is girls that are very shy. with very sharp voices, very high-pitched voices. So there have been a few weird exceptions where somebody's talking nonstop, they're talking continuously, they're getting 19 fluency, their pronunciation is pretty good, but they're still failing the speaking section. This is something that we personally have to listen to because that's something that has to do with your pacing and with your tone of voice. As a native English speaker, we have a certain way of talking. The words flow a certain way. But certain languages, for example, Tamil or Telugu, they put really strong emphasis on the words. And even though you're getting 90 in fluency, you're not getting 79 plus in speaking. So unfortunately, this is something that there are no tools for this. As a human being, we have to sit down together. We have to pick the right speed. We have to set at pace. That's something we can work on. But read aloud is something that you need a lot of practice in order to get maximum marks in your reading section. Now let's move on to the most hated question in the speaking section, including myself, which is repeat sentences. So for repeat sentences, if you've given the exam last year or the year before, it was a piece of cake. You got maybe 8 words, maybe 9 words, maybe 10 words. Back then, they didn't really care about the sequence as much. They cared just about the total number of words. And back then, their software, their speech recognition software wasn't as advanced compared to today. Meaning, if you said the word variable instead of variables, you kind of skipped the S, it was not so noticeable. You could get away with it. But now, if you got a single ing, ed, or us, or the, or a missing, that's going to affect your score. So nowadays, they don't care about your total number of words. They care more about the sequence, just like in your write from dictation. So we did an experiment recently, but we basically said only a few words out of a sentence, but we worried more about the sequence rather than the total number of words. And the results, as you might expect, you will actually get still 79 plus, or you'll still get the maximum number, not maximum, but close to it. But you'll get enough marks to pass your score. Now, describe image. I have a love-hate relationship with describe image. The reason why, it's an easy question. So you may be wondering, should I use a format? The answer is yes. Format is still the best way to do describe image because you have that consistency. You know exactly what you're going to say. I can close my eyes and I can do the describe image template with a picture, and I'm going to tell you exactly how many seconds I'm going to finish it in. If it's going to be 35 seconds, 40 seconds, or 30 seconds. So it's great to have that because you can be aware and you can keep talking longer if the image has little content, or you can cut it short if there's too much information. So that's something that you need to be careful with. Now, in terms of describe image template, over the years, I've seen countless ridiculous templates where you would have a black and white picture and the people would say that it's got red color, yellow is my favorite color, it's a very beautiful image, and blah, 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 blah. We've had people before that would come to us and they say that they would just read the title of the image and then they would start reading the instructions. They'd say, this is a bar graph which shows blah, blah, blah. I have 25 seconds to prepare for this image. After 25 seconds, I have to speak for this image for 40 seconds, blah, blah, blah. And they start again. I've got 25 seconds to prepare for this image. After 25 seconds, I will speak fluently for 40 seconds. So this is absolutely ridiculous. This stuff doesn't work anymore. If you got away with it in the past, you may have been lucky. Now they really started to crack down on this. So how long you speak for matters. But the most important thing is the format you use also matters. You cannot use a nonsense format. You have to use information which is relevant to the picture. Don't just keep repeating the same thing. Now, another format that people have been using in the past, and it works for most, but not everybody, is they give a brief introduction and then they say, on the screen I can see, 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 I can also see, I can also see, I can also see, I can also see. There's 2 problems with that format. So the first problem is that some people who don't have a tone or a pace similar to a native speaker, it tends to affect their score that even though their fluency is 90, they're getting 70s. Because with that kind of format, it's not a natural sentence that you speak, I can see, I can see, I can see, I can see. So people that have difficulty passing speaking with that format specifically, because the pacing is not good enough. The second problem with that format is that if you do speaking only, you're going to get a mark in speaking, you're going to get a mark in listening, you're going to get a mark in reading. But if you look at your enabling skills, you're also going to get a mark for your vocabulary. So most people think vocabulary mark comes from your essay, from your summaries, and that's partially correct. but it also comes from your speaking. So we've tried different formats. We've used simple formats. I can see, I can see, I can see, I can see. We've used slightly more complex formats. And the point being, even though the complex format is more painful to memorize in the beginning, it's way better for your result, because if you're getting 90 in fluency, but you're not passing speaking, you're getting 77, 72, this is one of the reasons why. Your format is not good enough. Before, they didn't really care so much in speaking about sentence structure. Now we've noticed they started to pay more attention to that. And the same thing for retail lecture. So retail lecture, which I showed you guys earlier over here, we recommend using a format, but the speed is going to be different. The speed for describe image is going to be maybe a little bit faster. The speed for retail lecture is going to be a bit slower. The reason why, because their content is more important. It also gives you marks in your listening section. So you need to make sure you're getting the maximum score. And maybe your read aloud is going to be somewhere in between. Could be faster, could be slower. That's something that as a human being, we still have to listen and give you feedback. But unfortunately, you can't use the same pace, the same speed for all the questions. Because in reality, that's not what they're looking for. That's not what they compare your exam to when they compare it with 90 scores. And the last short answer question, easy question for most people, could be maybe 2 or 3 questions are tough, you didn't know the answer. What we noticed lately, they're not asking you simple questions like, what is the first meal of the day? They might ask you how many days are there in a leap year, right? They might ask you how many days are there less in a leap year, or how many days are there in February on a leap year, or how many days are there more in a non-leap year. So you might get the same question, but they kind of ask you it in a twisted way, and they almost make it like a riddle. And if you give me 30 seconds to figure it out and give you the right answer, I'm sure you can do it. But the problem is whenever you got 2-3 seconds and you have to speak right away, and it's not the typical question that you read in your practice material that you're expecting, it's something that's a little bit twisted, a little bit more complex. You need to know what to do in that situation to get full marks. You need to be prepared. You can't just use your common sense, common knowledge. You actually need to have the right study materials. So just to summarize, speaking templates still work. But they did change the marking in read aloud. They changed the marking in your repeat sentences. So the way we teach it in the class now, it's completely different from the way we used to do it before. The speed, we can't use the same speed before like we used to. It's going to vary from question to question. Some questions care more about the content. Others care more about pronunciation. Others care more about your fluency. So the most important thing is whenever you are struggling in speaking, don't just listen to 20 different videos on YouTube. Don't even listen to me if this is not your style of learning. But the point being, whoever you're practicing it with, they need to have proven results that what they teach you is working. They need to have consistency. Because the worst thing when I get somebody that's given the exam 15 times prior to coming here, they got 4 different formats, 10 different teachers, 5 different tones of voices, and they get really, really confused. And they don't know what to do anymore, because it's really hard to unlearn something you've done before and have the faith in somebody else and learn it their way and then hope that it works. So whatever you do, you need to stick with it. You need to know that it works. You need to know that you're taking it and practicing it and getting feedback from somebody that's had an ear for thousands of students, and they can really guide you in a proper way. So that's it for the speaking section. There are more videos, more resources you can find in the description in the bio. Now stay tuned. The next one is going to be your writing section, specifically what changed in your summarized written text and what still works and what doesn't work in your essay.